Hi, everybody. Okay, so I have a question for you right off the top of the bat. Are you kind of sick of being on video? Kind of sick of being on Zoom, on camera all the time? Where you've got to worry about how you look, or maybe what's in your background, or maybe somebody who's going to walk by. You're kind of sick of the pressure all the time of worrying about what you look like, as well as whether the camera's working, all that stuff. Well, you know what? Your students are sick of it too. So, I got an idea. Stick with me for a few minutes because I've got some great ways to give the students some good activities, something kind of technology based, kind of creative and fun, yet that is not video and camera based. It's just audio. Super simple idea, right? Age old idea. I mean, how long has radio been around, right? I know. So I've done it for many years. I've got all kinds of ideas as to how to do it well, and it's purely audio based assignments. And here's the best part. Your students aren't going to complain about making another video or being on camera. They don't mind doing it at all. In fact, they actually like it. It's a private way for them to express themselves. Well, semi-private. It just seems a little bit more anonymous, a little bit more less stress and less judging and less peer pressure when it's only audio based. So come with me, stick here for, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes while I explain to you how I do it, what technology I use, what types of assignments are good for this, and what kind of results you should expect. Also, I love giving little like teacher tips as to how you can do it well. Not just do it, but do it well, right? I find this often the little key there is like not just to do it, but do it well. And I'll give you a few tips for actual um, uh, let's say apps or websites that will be helpful as well. So I'll put those up on the screen. Okay, so first of all, how do you do these exactly? Like, okay, it sounds great, record your voice, but with what or how or where do we put it? Super easy. On most iPhones, you can just have, the reason why I love this is it's so low tech. It's the best. It's like available to anybody. Because on every iPhone, and I'm sure it's on Android phones as well, what comes pre-installed on the phone is an app called Voice Memos. Let me just show you. It looks like that. Voice Memos, and then I have one that's also free that I use called Voice Record Pro. And these are super easy to use. You literally open up the app, press record, and start talking. That's it. And when you're done talking, you press stop and you can share the recording with your teacher. I'm sure you have something set up like a website or a Google Classroom or Canva or even just email. Back when I started doing these in about 2008 or 9, I literally just had them send all of their recordings by email, and that works really well too. So the technology is super easy. Now, if you want to do something more that's more not just an audio recording of their voice, them just speaking into their phones, you could do a student podcast. It's the same type of idea. They're still recording their voices, but there's a website called Spreaker. And Spreaker is literally for podcasts. And what the students do is they also record their voices, probably using a similar app like Voice Memos. And then they upload it to Spreaker, which is a website that will help them promote their podcast to the public. Maybe you only want them to have their parents hear it or the community hear it. Or maybe they actually want to develop a business because they've got some fabulous idea for podcasts. Who knows? And it's a little like social media. People like it, people share it, that type of thing. But if that's going a little bit too far, please don't feel like you need to make it that fancy. It doesn't need to be that fancy. Here, let me turn these off so I don't feel like I'm eating all those words up in my throat. The last idea you can do is a lot of schools do this, is develop a radio program. Now, this is getting a little bit more high tech. I know a lot of schools have purchased, 3 or 4 microphones. They sit you in a room, they pad the room, and then they go on radio for an hour each week. In fact, a teacher near me won Teacher of the Year nationwide after he developed a radio program very simple, and it was the students, totally the students doing. And it was a very humble school, low resources kind of a school, and they loved their ability to reach the community and express themselves. And again, it's all audio based. So I love audio, and I'll tell you why. Students love that, a little bit of that feeling of it being anonymous, a little bit of the feeling of it being private, and yet they still can express themselves. So it's this nice mix between feeling like you have a platform and yet you are not totally exposed. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, you can just do something super simple with an app on your phone, record it, and send it to your teacher. You can do something a little bit more fancy, which would be the same type of thing, but with a podcast, and then you try to upload it to a website where you could share it with other people, or create a radio show in your school. So schools love that kind of stuff because then it's these, maybe they'd be willing to fund it, but you don't even have to go that far. Just start with a couple of audio recordings, okay? So that's the how. Now let's talk about the what. I feel like there are so many different things that you could, gosh, I hope I'm recording. Sorry. Anyway, there are so many different types of assignments that you could do with audio. It is, endless. Anything you've written, you have as a written assignment, or any type of class presentation that you've done in the past can be converted to a very quick audio assignment. So for example, think about comparing and contrasting. Because I used to teach Spanish, I would do both the lower levels, which were real simple, and the higher levels, which was like reading literature and things like that. I used to love to compare and contrast two different stories. That was a popular one. Or having them tell their own story. And it could be anything. It could be related to their family heritage. It could be related to current events. It could be related to something creative that they wrote. I used to love to read a story in class and have them create an alternative ending to the story. Like they didn't like how the story ended, so have them redo it, or take a character from that story and create a new story, like a sequel or a prequel, whatever you want. You could do things like summarizing the contents of class or something related. It could be, let's say, 3 concepts that you learned this week in class, or what are the 3 things that really stood out to you today about this topic. It could be something a little bit more visually based in the sense that you could give them an image, some type of prompt, an image, and have them describe it to you on over a voice recording. You could do maybe an interview of a family member, of a local politician, of the the school administrators. Those are great audio based assignments as well, because again, they can just do it from their phone. Just because they hold their phone to their mouth and speak, then they just hold the phone as if it's a microphone, just hold the phone to the mouth of the person who is speaking. The other ones are great, are just to give their opinion on something that's going on. Their opinion of like current events are a great way to give opinion about what's going on in class. Maybe there's an issue going on at your school that they could give an opinion about, or something creative like what they love to do, their hobbies, their, like a how-to kind of a recording, how to knit, how to cook, how to make podcasts, So there's the ideas of what you could do are endless. And I really think that the more leeway you give them, the more creative you'll get with their results. And that leads me to the creativity and some tips, because here are the tips for what I think really does well with, with these types of audio recordings. Let me just quickly back up to say that, like I said earlier, I used to be a Spanish teacher in high school, right? So it was my goal was really to get them to be able to express themselves a little bit better in a foreign language, which, as you can imagine, is nerve-wracking totally in front of all of your peers. So that's where the idea came from. I said, how could I get them to express themselves in, like let's say using a Spanish accent or using fancy vocabulary, or really kind of getting into it a little bit without them feeling so nervous about everybody watching them. And that's when I got the idea of having them record their voices in a somewhat private place. That's the key, the privacy. So I used to do it a lot in class, but now that we're all here online, you could do it. They could do it from their homes, from their bedrooms, which is even more quiet, someplace where they can close their doors. And this is not only good for foreign language. Let me tell you, every kid loves the idea of not having people watch them, of not always being on camera, of not feeling the peer pressure of those around them. And like I said, it's almost a little bit anonymous when you're just speaking into the microphone on your phone. It doesn't feel so threatening. So that is my biggest tip. If you're going to do this in class, which is definitely good if you're starting out, you just have them do a quick sample recording, 30 seconds, no more. And that helps in two ways. One, you can experiment with having students leave the classroom, maybe go to the hallway. I had one who would love to do it in the bathroom. Maybe if you are allowed to, just go outside to the little patio area. Just make sure that they feel like they're a little bit alone. Have them record for 30 seconds and send it to you, because that helps with a couple of different things. One is you can make sure that people, that their recording app works, that you can actually hear them, that they can hear themselves, and that they know how to send it to you. So before you get into anything fancy, do the sample one. My famous story about that is that I also did like to do videos in my class, and I had them do group projects, which was quite a big deal. It's hard for them to coordinate all their time and come up with the idea and have little costumes and finally get together. So I had this really creative group do this super creative video, and by accident they recorded the whole thing without ever doing a test recording. And unfortunately, they cut off everybody's head at about here up. So from here down is all you could see on the entire 15-minute video. I felt so bad for them. And that can be so easily rectified, is that whenever you start with a new technology, the first assignment you run is a test assignment, so that you're forcing them to test the technology first, and then they send it on to you, okay? So a test assignment, 30 seconds, no more, and then they send it to you. So that's the first one. A private place is my biggest tip. Private place, a sample recording of only 30 seconds. The other thing I suggest is when you do start to do it for an actual assignment, don't grade everything. That was my mistake when I started. They were nervous to do it, and they started writing everything down because I was grading it. So they would write it and then just read it, which is not what you want. The whole idea is that they're learning to express themselves, right? So don't grade it. Emphasize the idea that it's all about learning to express themselves, and say, hey, I can tell when you're reading. It sounds like you're reading. Don't do that, So it helps a lot with the reading thing if you, as with all of these areas, if you create a rubric, right? A very specific rubric that tells them exactly what you're expecting. My first suggestion for the rubric is a time limit. Don't give them any more, especially at the beginning. And if you have entry-level classes or medium-level classes, they don't need to speak for a long time. And plus, you don't want to listen to a ton of audio. So make it a 2-minute audio. And then give them specific bullet points, like you want 10 vocabulary words or 3 points explained, or the fact that they need to enunciate their words, etc. So it's not only about the content. You want that to be part of your rubric, the content, the amount of time that they need to speak, but also remind that this is like a presentation. So just like you would do a presentation in class, you want them to enunciate their words, express themselves succinctly. If it's in a foreign language, to use a correct accent, high-level vocabulary, whatever that may be. But it's kind of a mix between the content that they're presenting and the way that they present it, the expression, you may call it, the presentation and the expression aspect. And so I also used to include on my rubric the fact that whether they were reading it or not. There's nothing wrong with having a couple of bullet points written down on a card, to remind them of what they wanted to say, but they can't read it, so I may downgrade them a little bit if they were just purely reading it off of a page, because that's not the idea. So that, and then like I said before, the important point is privacy, that they have a little bit of privacy so that they don't feel so nervous. They don't feel like they're being judged. They don't feel like their friends are watching them. And here's the best part. When they feel like they have some privacy and that they are allowed to express themselves their own way, you're going to be floored at the results. This happened to me over and over again. Let's say out of a class of 20 students, you always have like 5 students who never speak in class, right? You got to pull their teeth to get them to speak. And I literally remember listening to the audio recordings of, let's say, 3 out of those 5, checking and rechecking that I was listening to the actual person who said that they had handed it in to me, because they had this beautiful voice and this phenomenal expression. And in Spanish, they had this fantastic accent. I'm like, who is this person? You're going to love it. It's a really alternative way of getting them to express themselves. Like, have you ever done something where, like, instead of writing, you have them draw, or instead of reading, you have them speak, and all of a sudden you see like a different side of a student? Exactly. That's why you want to try an audio only type of recording or assignment or project, or even for a grade, because you're going to see the different sides of your students, and it's delightful. It is just delightful. So, like any audio, I guess there's both positive and negative involved. Project, I meant to say. There's both positive and negative. The negative may be that they fall back on reading, or which isn't the idea, and it gets to be a little bit more boring for you, And then the other negative is that you do have to sit down and listen to them. If it's the exact same topic over and over again, it's tough. So in order to break that up, my suggestion would be to have like half of the class do an audio recording and half of the class do a written assignment. And then the next time you do it, switch. That way, it's a little bit different for you. It's not so tedious to correct, So I suppose listening to them, you have to invest the same amount of time as you would correcting an essay or correcting any other type of assignment. Or, it takes up class time to have them do in-person assignments. So this doesn't take up your class time, which is another advantage, So the negative are, I think, totally outweighed by the positive. And the positive is that it's a really fantastic way for the students to express themselves that is non-threatening and a little bit different. It's like a totally old idea, but it's a new idea, in that not a lot of people are doing audio assignments, audio recordings as assignments. So remember to kind of explore with the topics you want to do. Start out by don't grade them. Do a little bit of a tester of assignment. See how it goes. Improve upon them. And allow them to express themselves, to be creative. That's another fantastic skill that we're teaching our students, is to how to be creative. So they're going to love it because they're not going to feel half as much pressure. You're going to love it because it's something different, and you're going to see such a phenomenal result out of your students. So if you would like more information about this topic, I did write a blog post where maybe you could, it's right there on the screen, called Student Podcasting and Other Audio Projects. It's on my website. You can access it anytime. And some of these same things are mentioned in there about the different apps or websites that you could use that could be helpful. So if if you're kind of the reading kind of a person, you could click on that and read that. The other thing I do have that's helpful on the website is a little what I call hybrid teaching hacks. It's a downloadable PDF, it's free. If you're in that situation where you've got some kids online, some kids in person in your classroom, this may be helpful for you too. There's other free resources on my website if anybody's interested, but I just thought I'd mention two of those. So anyway, that's it, everybody. That's all I have for you today. I hope you find it. I would love to hear the comments down below as to whether you tried it or not and how it turned out for you. So please let me know how things are going for you, and I hope to talk to you real soon. See you back here next week. Take care. Bye-bye.